he? Oh, is he playing tricks again?
Alicia. Alicia?
Your face.
My face? What about my face? Are you going to burn it again? Alicia's your daughter. And Maya will remind you of her. The daughter you lost.
Come along. Let's go home.
Yes. You need to go home.
This is another trick. She's not Alicia. You are not my first.
No. Verso's dead.
No. You are his creation, not mine. You will not take this canvas from me.
This is what created the expedition.
Tomorrow comes.
How cruel of your father to use you like this. How cruel of your father to use you like this. How cruel of your father to use you like this. How cruel of your father to use you like this. Do you understand what you've done? You're supposed to be How cruel of your father to use him like this.
I think I'm gonna play this for sure.
What you've done. You killed him. Who are you supposed to be? No matter.
Good to have you back, Damien.
Brilliant. I'm such a good life. I'm very proud of you.
Alex is ready for you. Alex Fox.
Wrestlers were dying young. And it was very often a combination drugs and steroids. And wrestlers were dying. It didn't hurt the popularity of wrestling because the fans.
So am I addressing everything to you? Oh, thank you, everybody. Thank you. Yeah, happy, I guess.
which I have never done before. I don't like talking about me. You know, talk about everybody else. I'm cool if I can go perform with this, but very strange and a little different than me talking about me. So I'll do the best I can.
Larger than life, Vince McMahon, more famous than some of the wrestling stars he helped create. McMahon has been called the P.T. Barnum of wrestling, building WWE into an international billion-dollar business.
He's also an on-screen presence as the billionaire bad guy boss.
For a long period of time, people wondered who I really am. You know, portrayal of me, I'm a bad guy. But no one really knows me. And it's been a while for me to try and figure out myself. I still haven't quite figured out who I am. So I mean, Vince McMahon? I don't think anybody knows Vince McMahon.
Please welcome Mr. McMahon.
People know who he is, but they really don't know who he is.
The person that he puts out there, the larger-than-life promoter, a lot of that is a character when it comes to him personally. He's going to show you what he wants you to see. Very few people are in control of a world. Vince McMahon was. He has built something so powerful, so big, and so ingrained in people generationally. He did things that no one thought were possible. And he took no prisoners in the process. Vince McMahon, he comes as advertised. And what you expect, that's exactly what you're going to get.
I love Vince, and I have a lot of respect for him. And he was a guy that often lied to me and let me down with his lies. Do you think your dad gets a bad rap?
I think my dad gets the rap that he wants.
Breaking news that was just brought to me. Vince McMahon, the legendary CEO and chairman of Worldwide Wrestling Entertainment, is stepping aside. The Wall Street Journal reports that WWE is investigating a secret $3 million settlement that Vince McMahon agreed to pay a now former employee, who McMahon is accused of having a consensual affair with.
It started with a tip, and the tip was that the board of WWE had received an anonymous email. The emailer was accusing McMahon of having taken advantage of an employee and then covered it up. Another thing we heard was, you're only scratching the surface, and there's a lot more here.
That first story in June of 2022 touched off a series of events that included us reporting on other NDAs, government investigations, Vince stepping down, Vince McMahon returning, and then selling the company, and then a lawsuit against him that contained some of the most graphic details imaginable.
The WWE mogul resigning on Friday after a former employee filed a lawsuit accusing him of subjecting her to, quote, countless depraved and humiliating acts.
I wish I could tell you the real stories. Holy shit.
All right, give us one.
No.
Why?
That's what I'm saying. I don't want to tell you these stories. I'll give you enough that's semi-interesting. I don't want anybody to really know me.
He's as polarizing as he is entertaining. Vince McMahon is part renegade, part mogul, and all children. Over decades, McMahon turned the WWE into a billion-dollar juggernaut.
Throw in one part athletics, one part theatrics, and more than a dash of violence, and what do you get? One of America's favorite pastimes.
100% grade A Americano.
The Justice Department has announced the indictment of a man who runs the World Wrestling Federation.
This is about crime. This is about breaking the law. This was a tyrant ahead of this organization that ruled by fear. What did he know? What did he do? And what did he try to hide?
This goes beyond business. It's a family matter as well.
This is like Succession in a wrestling ring.
Another corporate leader mired in a sex scandal.
We're not talking about garden variety misconduct. We're talking about some real awful things.
A lot of Vince McMahon, his ability to get away with stuff, was because he was also this character.
Where does the line between Vince McMahon and Mr. McMahon end?
first thing I need to tell you is you're not going to totally understand what happened or what is, because you have to live it to comprehend it. You're only going to know what they tell you. So I just know wrestlers and promoters of this business, so you're not going to get, the whole enchilada.
To explain what pro wrestling is turning fantasy into reality. I remember guys go, why do you watch that bullshit wrestling? It's on, none of it's real. They don't care. It's just phony wrestling. It's like, you're wrong. I look at what I did. That's an art form. Just watch the beauty of it. Wrestling is this curious phenomenon that allows people to let out their aggressions while watching a morality play. Most people, when they're driving home, they go, oh, it's all a show. Son, none of that was real. But when they're there in the building, you want to believe it's real. I was a true artist.
People that weren't fans would say, it's all fans that are too stupid to realize that it's not real. No, it's all people that are smart enough to accept the fact that it's a show and buy into characters and the storylines and engage in it in that manner.
Pro wrestling has always been a soap opera, just in broad primary colors. Here's your hero, here's your villain, here's your damsel in distress. We give you an opportunity to feel. When you see everything that we do, it's about emotion, and it's about grandeur. That's what America is. It's part of life. It's great stories. Our form of entertainment is American culture.
Professional wrestling matters in that it's so much a part of American culture, and nobody talks about it as mattering. Vince McMahon's influence and impact is largely ignored, but it is affecting the way the world around us is working.
We're going to have to swing down to Phoenix to do some PR for March 31st.
This is 39-year-old Vince McMahon, a third-generation wrestling promoter, sometime announcer, and the force behind the WWF.
One day, we hope to be recognized as the premier source of sports entertainment in the world today.
I got my start in the business because of my dad. My dad was considered the best promoter in the business.
I first met Vince McMahon Sr. in Madison Square Garden when I was 15 years old. He looked and presented himself like the Pope of Madison Square Garden.
When I was growing up, I didn't know that my last name was McMahon until I met my dad when I was 12 years old.
Why?
Before that, I grew up in a trailer park with my mom and this certain stepfather who was abusive. I got the crap beat out of me on almost a daily basis. You just live with it until you get out of it. When all that, physical abuse and everything was happening, never heard a word from my dad. I saw my dad for the first time. It's almost like my dad had a glow about him. I ran up to him with open arms, expecting to have this big guy. And I got on the back of him, I think one. That was a little bit different. But nonetheless, I sort of fell in love with him right away. You could feel he had in his heart the way that you wanted him to be, somewhat. Or maybe I was just bullshitting myself, I don't know. My dad and I never had the conversation about why he wasn't in my life during all those formative years. Even when I became much older, we never talked about that.
One thing that's indisputably true about Vince McMahon is that he came from basically nothing. But once his father came into his life, whatever dreams of escape Vince had went from the abstract to the concrete. He could point at his dad and say, that's what I aspire to. And that's going to be my way out of this.
I never saw much wrestling on television until I met my dad. And then, oh, this is what he does. He's a big charismatic individual, larger than life. They have problems with each other, and the resolution is physical, and they fight. I like that. At that time, a sort of a strange relationship with my dad. We didn't play ball together, or there was no camaraderie that way. We talked business even at that age. That was sort of what we had in common, other than the fact that we were blood.
Vince and I met when I was 13 and he was 16. I don't think I ever heard him talk about doing anything else other than wanting to be involved in the business of professional wrestling.
I knew I wanted to be in my dad's business. Come on, Pop, there's got to be something. And that's when he allowed me to go to Bangor, Maine, as the furthest northern outpost in my dad's territory. Bangor was a success, and my dad was thinking, kid did pretty well. Then one day, I'm with my dad on a television show, and our television announcer kept asking for more money. The show was about ready to begin, and he said, well, if you don't pay me what I want, I'm walking out. And my dad a lot of times had these quarters. He would like click these quarters in his hand as he was thinking. So I see him off like this, he's thinking. I said, Pop, what are you going to do? Go announce. Hear the announcer.
Show number 1, recording of All-Star Wrestling in Hamburg, Pennsylvania. Just quick enough for you, Pop. Slated to play, just roll it, Daddy. Hello, everybody. My name is Vince McMahon.
So I start trying to BS my way through as an announcer.
Bobo, look at those neck muscles, big biceps, a great athlete, and really indeed, not to belabor a point, but it is indeed nice to have you back here this week.
Vince was a horrible commentator. But one thing that Vince had was emotion. And Vince told stories.
I realized that I'm the conduit. I have to translate to the audience what's going on in the ring. Here's the story that's being told.
Nabisco is facing a legend.
Our business is no different than a play, a movie, books. It's all the same. Okay, you have an environment, so we establish what that environment is.
They've jam-packed this arena.
The next thing you have to do is create some very interesting characters.
Nabisco, of course, the only individuals who have been trained by Bruno Sammartino.
The good and the bad. A baby face, which meant a good guy, and the other was a heel, which meant a bad.
I have to go party. I'm going pee-pee. Stay down here. I'll be right back. Be right back. We go potty? You have to go potty? No? You want to go potty? Come on, let's go potty. No? All right. Are you the best dog in the world? I'll never leave you. Come on. You stay down? You lay down? No, we're not kissing Daddy. I know you just want to eat the food. Just lay down. Can you lay down? Down. Oh, you went out to eat. Yummy. Whoa. Hey, Giselle. Where are you? Looks bomb.
I'll send you a picture. It's bad, medium rare. It's perfect.
He's a sleeping boy. Hey, Giselle. That burger looks a little jummyoso. All right, peace. I don't see you people. You're only next to me because I have food. That's it. Yeah, you don't care about anything else.
Babyface, which meant a good guy, and the other was a heel, which meant a bad guy. And San Martino holds the rope open for Zabisco. Look out! And then you introduce another character. There's always this big finish. The formula is simple, but not that easy to do. Kept that job announcing for my dad. And it wasn't long after that, but my dad wanted to get out of the business. He wanted to sell to someone. And when he was going to sell to someone, he wasn't thinking about me at all.
As a matter of fact, he was going to sell it to Gorilla Monsoon, who was a partner at that time.
Monsoon, another one got that. Ali, not finding his mark at all. I joined the company. Gorilla Monsoon was the heir apparent. And I could feel the tension right away. Gorilla Monsoon thinks I'm competition. And boy, was he right. When I proposed to buy my dad's business, they made a deal with me. I'll give you X number of dollars here, 3 months later those, 3 months later that, and then the final payment. And if I miss a payment, then you get the business back and keep the money. That appealed to my dad and appealed to his other stockholders because they're thinking this kid's not going to make it.
We took over Vince's father's company. We actually were paying with money that they would have been generating should they have stayed in the business. You know, it was robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Made the last payment, and no one could believe it. My dad was really, really surprised.
I don't get it.
Do you think your dad wanted you to succeed?
I don't get it. Yeah.
I'll give you X number of dollars here.
But like, why doesn't he explain it?
And I can feel the tension right away. Gorilla Monsoon thinks I'm competition. And boy, was he right. When I proposed to buy my dad's business, they made a deal with me. I'll give you X number of dollars here, 3 months later those, 3 months later that, and then the final payment. And if I miss a payment, then you get the business back and keep the money. That appealed to my dad and appealed to his other stockholders because they're thinking this kid's not going to make it.
We took over Vince's father's company. We actually were paying with money that they would have been generating
So
should they
it's
have
like-
stayed in the business.
Yeah.
You know, it was robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Made the last payment, and no one could.
Why could they not believe
My
it?
dad was really, really surprised.
Do you think your dad wanted you to succeed?
I think my dad wanted me to succeed, but then again, sometimes I think he didn't.
I honestly thought that he didn't want to make it easy for Vince. That he really wanted to let him know what it was like to struggle.
But it was strange because when I bought the business, there was some friction there because my dad, he then worked for me. And I knew he didn't want what I wanted. Hello, everyone. Welcome to All American Wrestling. My vision was to upgrade the product. My vision was to make this mainstream, not the lower class that everyone thought it was. I didn't want to be pro wrestling. I don't like that term today. I want to be something beyond pro wrestling. I wanted us to grow and compete against all these other promoters all over the country.
During this point in time, the wrestling industry was regional and operated in what was called the territory system.
Yep.
There were separate wrestling companies around the country, and they each ran shows both live and on TV within their own territory.
So you had Florida, you had Georgia, you had the Mid-Atlantic, Carolinas, there was San Francisco, Portland, Seattle. Vince's dad had WWE, which was then known as WWF, in the Northeast Territory. And there were these imaginary lines that no one crossed.
Whoa.
It was a good old boy system. People had agreements, and you didn't break those agreements.
As soon as I closed the deal, I knew right what I wanted to do. I would go right into their territories.
One of the great World Wrestling Federation cities, St. Louis, Missouri.
That started promoting his own shows in what would traditionally be someone else's territory. And that ruffled a lot of feathers.
Whether it's in St. Louis, Los Angeles, Hoboken, New Jersey, or wherever, no doubt the World Wrestling Federation will be there.
So my dad was very much against that. He said, take it easy, Penny. Don't rock the boat. It hurt my dad, but at the same time, I'm in business. Other promoters started threatening my dad. You know, your kid, Vince, is going to wind up at the bottom of the river. I don't know what it is, these promoters, I guess, love the bottoms of rivers. Whenever I was threatened, I didn't care. Because you didn't own anything. I'm competing with you.
Back with you here on All Star Wrestling, and joining me now, former 9-time heavyweight champion of the world, Vern Gagne. And Vern, I worked for Vern Gagne in the AWA, which was one of the strongest territories. And as far as Vern Gagne was concerned, Vince was Satan. He was the devil. He came in and ruined all the territories.
In a moment, we'll take you to Tampa, Florida.
Once they made their national expansion and started shattering the territory mold, so many of the top talent who were really fixtures in other territories decided to take a better opportunity with Vince McMahon and the WWE.
Our talent was making so much money, which attracted other talents.
It's a virtual flood of wrestling talent into the World Wrestling Federation, the likes of which we've never seen before.
If you really look at what he did, he was quite cutthroat. He basically went into almost every territory and bought out their top guys. Then he would go back to their town with the 3 or 4 guys that he stole from there. There was nothing anybody could do about it.
We understand that you're attempting to invade almost every area in the United States.
That's right. Most wrestlers that work for Vince came from somewhere else, and somebody else did the hard work to make that person who they were. And one phone call, they ran and left that guy standing in the dust. Just like he did with me. I can make you more money here. It's a dog-eat-dog world, and you have to get your bite out of it.
It was one of those things where I'm not taking anything away from anyone. I'm building. Every time you compete with me, it's America. Tough.
There's no doubt that the popularity of the World Wrestling Federation continues by leaps and bounds.
And at that time, I'm competing with all these promoters successfully. So I then said, okay, now I can do things my way. My dad chose Bob Backlund as a champion.
I love to travel, I love the fans, I love wrestling, and every minute of my life is a pleasure.
He was the all-American boy, but a little too milquetoast. I was looking for someone that had more charisma.
Look at that. Are you kidding me? Look at this. The dream. Just holding it right now. Oh, no.
Like, okay, there was Dusty Rhodes as a possibility.
You can look up in this building in a matter of few hours when it's full, and you can see a black man and a white man eating out of the same popcorn box. Woo! That's funky. That's the American dream.
I had only ever been told by my father that he just didn't believe in it. It seemed too large of an endeavor.
Dusty could not take advantage of the opportunity. And so I kept looking for someone that would charm you, someone that would excite you, someone that was larger than life.
This man is not a television illusion.
The first time I met Hulk Hogan, it was years before I bought my dad's business.
Wow, what a physical specimen.
He was Sterling Golden.
Sterling Golden.
When my dad saw him, he said, that's not your name. And he changed it to Hulk Hogan.
The incredible Hulk Hogan.
When they brought me up, they needed somebody that people thought could beat Andre the Giant. It was one of their big stars.
Andre the Giant is sports entertainment's first attraction. You could advertise Andre the Giant, and you could draw a house.
I was kind of like Andre's other half. We wrestled everywhere. K-Stadium was sold out with me and Andre the Giant. So I was pretty well established. And one of the ways I would get established was to have these so-called TV matches. During those matches, I would wrestle two guys. Sylvester Stallone saw that. So that's how I ended up getting offered the part in the Rocky movie. I was talking with Vince Sr. about doing Rocky 3, and Vince Sr. said, if you're not doing that, you're a wrestler. You don't act and you don't do TV stuff.
He asked my dad. My dad said, no. Because my dad had invested a lot in Hogan. He wanted to get his money out of it.
He goes, well, if you do that, you're fired and you'll never work here again. I said, okay, cool.
Washington, I knew he was big. I'm coming out here now. If you took Scarface, if you took The Godfather, the Rocky franchise was bigger than all that. It was Americana. I knew it was going to put me on the map. That's crazy. But you're not going to Hulk Hogan. You are one good-sized person, right? One big man.
In the middle of this, Ferngani got a hold of me. How quick can you get to Minnesota?
Hulk Hogan, back in the AWA.
When I went to the AWA, I started the Hulkamania stuff. I started ripping my shirt off. And it was growing, becoming dominant.
I followed his career, and he was really honing in on his talents.
Here comes Hogan. Here is the leg smash. I am the champion. This is your belt.
Vince came to me and said, hey, I want to take over all the territories. And I want to do the deal. And I went, let's go, brother.
Hulk knew where the business was going, and he knew this was the direction. It was an easy decision. Some guy's going to push you and make you the biggest star, and you're going to go national. And the other guy just wants to promote Minneapolis and Chicago and Milwaukee.
I've been dreaming my whole career about going back, and when Vince said what he was going to do with me, I knew what was going to happen.
So somehow I had to transfer from Bob Backlund to get to Hogan. I couldn't make that match. There were two both baby faces. So I used the Iron Sheik. The Iron Sheik from Iran was one of those disliked individuals we've ever had as a heel in our company. There was a lot of nationalism then. A lot of rah-rah America. And for years we had problems with Iran.
The president met with the National Security Council in Washington about the fast-breaking developments in Iran.
there was American hostages that are being held in Iran. It's front page news. It's talked about every single day.
So when the Iron Sheik would be in the ring, waving the Iranian flag and all that, actually that got a negative reaction.
You look at what is happening and you try and tell a story off of that and have people be able to react in a way that they couldn't necessarily react in real life.
Again, a lot of people do not like the Iron Sheik.
You can't find an Iranian sheik walking down the street that you can boo and hiss at and see him get beat up. But you could go to the wrestling matches and you could see it.
Where are they chanting? I don't want to say it now.
It doesn't always age well, but look at the movies. Movies depicted Japan as the evil empire attacking America. Anybody from Japan was not to be trusted. Germany, Russians,
If he does, he does.
you were taught in an early age. These people, foreigners, they were the bad guys.
From Russia.
Right, wrong, indifferent. In that time, your bad guy was the Russian bad guy, the German bad guy, the Japanese bad guy. And it was easy to understand for people.
Wrestling is an imitation of the world. If you want to know what America is like, watch wrestling. We show you yourself.
Tell me a wrestler you don't like.
See,
You don't like this. I'm out of the country, man. I'm out of the country.
Vince see what's going on, he followed the river. That's how he became rich. He never swam upstream.
You can look back on anything and say, oh, I bet you regret that. Well, look back on, 10 years, 20 years, 5 years ago. Life was different then. Things were different. Values were different. And you can't take the values of today and look back and say, okay, the same values apply to that. Well, it was a different time, different life, different set of values then. If it were done today, wow, that would be a problem. But then, I didn't think it was a real big deal. The Iron Sheik. So I wanted to transfer the title Bob Backlund to the Iron Sheik. And then, of course, setting us up for this big blonde-haired All-American to come in and beat the Iron Sheik from Iran.
Hulk Hogan needed the ultimate opponent, and the timing was impeccable. The all-American hero versus this evil Iranian. Back then, Vince made the decision if I was going to win or lose the match. But what we physically did in the ring, I called in the ring on the spot, and we didn't rehearse anything. That's the art form of wrestling. I jumped in before the bell rang, didn't tell him I was going to do it. Just felt like the right thing to do. Didn't tell him I was going to clothesline him with it, choke him out with it. Just all happens. You have to listen to the crowd. You don't like feel it, you listen, you think.
It's a really huge response from Madison Square Garden. And of course, everyone knows Hulk Hogan to this day.
Oh, yes. Who's for the whole WWF to stand behind the holster? I told him I'd bring it home for the USA. Hulkamania's running worldwide.
To put the belt on the Iron Sheik and then have the business direction that the belt's coming to me because we need a guy to be the foot on him to take over the world. That was a business decision that Vince had to execute creatively. And it worked.
Many fans feel that Hulk Hogan is perhaps the most exciting pro wrestling champion ever.
You can't overemphasize the importance of Hulk Hogan. You take Hulk Hogan out of the equation, I think Vince fails in his expansion. I'm relatively certain he fails in his expansion. Pro wrestling is a star-driven business, and the ability to make stars is what makes you popular. Vince was much better at making stars than all of these other promoters because his father was. Vince McMahon Sr. was really good at making the top guys come across like stars, which was more important than having good wrestling matches. That was Vince's strength because it was his father's strength.
There was a point when my dad told me he was proud of me. He said, you know what, Vinny? All these friends of mine.
You can't overemphasize the importance of Hulk Hogan. You take Hulk Hogan out of the equation, I think Vince fails in his expansion. I'm relatively certain he fails in his expansion. Pro wrestling is a star-driven business, and the ability to make stars is what makes you popular. Vince was much better at making stars than all of these other promoters because his father was. Vince McMahon Sr. was really good at making the top guys come across like stars, which was more important than having good wrestling matches. That was Vince's strength because it was his father's strength.
There was a point when my dad told me he was proud of me. He said, you know what, Vinny? All these friends of mine, they're really friends of mine, all these promoters I've worked with all these years in the territories, you know what, fuck them. You're beating all of them. I'm proud of you for what you've done. Fuck them all. And I thought, wow. First time my dad ever said anything like that, he was on my side. Of course, he waited until I was a success, and maybe he felt that way all along, but he never told me. That was one of the biggest moments of my life. Until
in a moment of silence for Mr. Vincent J. McMahon.
the day before he died was the only time that he told me that he loved me. But wow, he told me before he died. That felt so good. Whether or not they care for you or not, it's so wonderful in life to have someone that you care for. And I had the opportunity to really care about my dad and to love my dad.
I don't think he liked his father, to be honest with you.
Why do you say that?
When Junior came along, he had a vision that wrestling is going to change. It can't remain the same. And every idea that came out of his head drove his father up the roof. It drove the wrestlers up the roof. I remember the guy just sitting in the dressing room talking about how nutty he was. When Vince became the owner of the company, and he and his father started to clash, the clashes were mostly because of Vince Sr.'s lack of willingness to accept where the industry and the business was headed. Vince come along with all these ideas that we thought were crazy. It was not wrestling.
Vince had ideas about programming to a younger audience and not shying away from the fact that this was scripted entertainment. Vince really wanted to grow and expand.
While everybody else was looking at the territories, Vince understood that national cable was the future.
It was very clear to me from the very beginning that Vince was looking at a bigger distribution.
Whoa.
USA Network became the marketing channel for WWF. Vince always wanted to promote something new that they were doing.
Vince was never in the wrestling business. He was always in the entertainment business. Like, for example, when he first came in and took over, he made that talk show. And we thought he was off his deep end.
Thank you. Welcome to TNT.
It was so much fun.
That's right.
It was the Wild West in a talk show format. It was a riot.
Wow! You stupid idiot!
Vince was experimenting with different kinds of ways to expose the talent to different audiences.
I was in favor of that for sure. He always wanted to use wrestling as a stepping stone into other stuff.
Our company was growing, and things just started opening up. And it's like, well, yeah, let's do this, let's do that.
The voice of the World Wrestling Federation and host of TNT, Mr. Vince McMahon.
Hey, but as you know, there are lots of mothers in New York City.
There was an overlap that you and Vince had early on.
Oh, yeah. It was Letterman's 3rd anniversary show, and they decide if a baby was born during the show, then that baby would become the late night baby. And so they sent Vince McMahon to one maternity ward and me to another.
Vince, I have a question for you.
Yes, baby.
Is that your tuxedo?
No, actually, it's not.
Okay.
I think Vince enjoyed being on David Letterman. It was as culturally hip a show as you could find. It was a mark of credibility if David Letterman gave you a figurative thumbs up.
I have a question for you, Larry. Is that your tux?
Vince always looked at how could he connect different aspects of the world of entertainment. How can we co-brand with something and make both of our brands bigger and stronger?
Cyndi Lauper was on MTV at that time, and she was a huge star.
For the uninitiated, this is Cyndi Lauper, whose debut album, She's So Unusual, placed 4 singles in the top 5. On the video for one of them, Girls Just Want to Have Fun, Captain Lou Albano appeared as Cindy's father.
Cyndi Lauper met Captain Lou Albano on a plane and just felt that there could be some connection.
There's an opportunity to grow our businesses, both of us.
Cindy, tell all these people out here how I made you a superstar. Tell them how you came off my reputation, Cindy. How all women are nothing, Cindy.
He was associated with us, and that made MTV think, well, okay, you're Cindy, she's going into this other genre. Well, let's work with this other genre as well.
We got MTV, The Brawl.
We did 2 television shows on MTV. Got great ratings for MTV, and it was a great storyline.
I challenge you, you fat bag of wind.
At that time, women's wrestling was day class A and a day class A business. And so I thought, if Cindy connect with one of our female performers, that'll make that division even more. Wendy Richter was the choice to represent Cindy.
I just got a call from her out of the blue asking if I could represent her in the ring. And I said, sure. There was a buzz in the arena, and it was because of her involvement.
At this point, many of my friends, we were wrestling fans. We liked the whole tongue-in-cheek aspect of it. Like, here's a mainstream sports guy, and now he's lending his voice to introducing Hulk Hogan and Rowdy Piper. And he's doing it straight.
Thank you, Howard. This is indeed an honor.
It was funny. I loved it.
I had made friends with Mr. T. Mr. T was white hot at the time, just really on fire. So you bring the celebrity into our world.
To have this partnership with MTV, it was quite a step up from what we had been doing.
MTV was red hot back then. So this product that Vince McMahon put together just wasn't in the back rooms or people that smoked cigars. I mean, this was getting to be mainstream.
It changed wrestling. Now it's okay for people to say, I watch wrestling.
Andy Warhol, your impressions of what took place earlier on here.
I'm speechless. It's so exciting, I just don't know what to say.
I don't think it's over. I think we have just seen the tip of the iceberg.
At that time, the business was growing leaps and bounds, and I enjoyed putting in the work. But my wife finally needed a vacation, so I went to the Caribbean someplace for 2 days. I came back the next day and announced we're going to have one big event a year, just like the Super Bowl, and we're going to call it WrestleMania. She said, "You weren't relaxing, you weren't enjoying it at all. You were thinking about business."
On Sunday afternoon, March 31st, it's WrestleMania. Mr. T risks it all, wrestling for the first time, teaming up with champion Hulk Hogan.
You will see the greatest production of wrestling ever in the world. Wrestling history will be made. The Woodstock of professional wrestling.
WrestleMania was obviously just, again, common sense. There's a Super Bowl or other big culminations of sports and things of that nature. So why wouldn't we have one big end of the season type deal?
WrestleMania.
WrestleMania. Maybe we could take this one huge event and put it on what was known as closed circuit.
And there are going to be over 1 million people watching on closed circuit television all over the United States here.
Closed circuit was simply a very large projector projecting on a screen in an arena what you were presenting. And you paid money as if it were a live event to come in and watch. That concept today sounds ridiculous, but that's the way it was then.
Yeah. Closed circuit television, every major city in the United States.
Not only that, Jack, but it's going to 24 foreign countries on big screen.
The hype worked so well that Hulk Hogan and Mr. T have been granted the ultimate yuppie honor, co-hosting Saturday Night Live.
We got a really big match coming up. Madison Square Garden. WrestleMania, that is. In terms of publicity for WrestleMania, you wanted to invite the media as much as you possibly could. We had an event in Madison Square Garden.
This isn't really wrestling. This is wrestling.
And John Stossel from one of the networks wanted to interview some of our performers. John Stossel's there under the premise that he wants to find out if Hulk Hogan's really as popular as the New York Times said. And as we're walking, he goes, "You guys use razor blades to bleed?" And I said, "Kidding me? Isn't that kind of masochistic?" My head was already carved up from the last couple of weeks. Man, I make a beeline to Vince. I say, "Vince, this guy is not here to find out how popular Hulk Hogan is. He's here to expose the wrestling business."
If Vince come into the dressing room, and he said there was a reporter here that run around and said wrestling is wrestling fake.
Fans, I'm afraid I have to tell you, it is fake.
He said, "I wish somebody do something with that guy."
I did not hear Vince McMahon say anything about putting him in his place. That's verbiage I never heard.
He didn't tell us to do it, but he said, "I wish someone would take care of that guy." And he walked out the dressing room.
And as the rest of our name, David Schultz decided he would step into the shot.
I think this is fake.
You think it's fake? Out of nowhere, David Schultz just slaps the crap out of Stossel.
You think it's fake?
Well, do you remember Vince's reaction to John getting hit?
We all celebrated. Not just Vince, everybody. I mean, David was getting pats on the back, people were banning drinks.
Well, at the time, we were very protective of the business because wrestling is not fake; it's predetermined and it's exhibition. But I can tell you, in the last 10 years, I've had 23 surgeries in 10 years. So if that's fake, please explain it to me. I didn't get the memo.
At the time, you got to realize, David was protecting the business. We loved it until the lawsuit came down. That's when the shit hit the fan.
How is it physically?
The doctor now says I have ear damage that's probably permanent.
Mainstream culture was coming to pro wrestling, but pro wrestling wasn't quite ready for prime time. You see a similar thing on the Richard Belzer show. When Hulk Hogan, who's the most media ready of anybody in that crew, finds himself in this incredibly bizarre and unfortunate situation.
Well, Carol, you don't know what's going on, man. You must have been involved in something. Let me call that out for you, little dude. Let me tell you how it's tough to take when people are trying to undermine our business. And the thing is, I fear no man. I believe you. Did you dig it? I can dig it twice. Are you a man? What do you think? I really don't know. You want to tell like when Richard Belzer says, "Hey, put one of those wrestling moves on me." Now, you just tell me, brother, when you want him to put spleen on him. All right. Brought him over and I slipped him the front chin off. How about it, T? Keep like that for a little while. When I let it go, he fell and hit his head.
Belzer just flopped. And Hulk thought it was a pratfall. In actuality, he was hurt. Hit his head when he fell, and it was bleeding. This was not good.
I sued Mr. T, I sued Hulk Hogan, I sued Vince McMahon, I sued the World Wrestling Federation. I sued them all.
Yeah, Vince wasn't real happy with me. We were at a very, very vulnerable stage with WrestleMania 1 for me to be going around choking people out and stuff,
WrestleMania was a big risk. Vince stanked everything on this WrestleMania being a success. He put a lot of money into it. The story is if it had failed, he'd have been belly up. And it's very possibly true.
Well, my parents mortgaged everything they owned to make WrestleMania 1 happen. I was so young, I didn't truly understand what that meant.
My parents never really took finance in front of us. You can feel it. My dad would just keep saying, this is going to work. And, we're betting a lot on this one. At this point, I'm a teenager. And I'm just like,
we really didn't have the money to do it. And if it was a huge failure, then we were in trouble.
I'd say that's an accurate statement.
Welcome, everyone. Gorilla Monsoon here at ringside as the World Wrestling Federation presents the wrestling extravaganza of all time, WrestleMania.
I knew that if we didn't pull this thing off, that we were completely out of business.
It was a roll of the dice, a big one. But so many things that night went right. It was a big success.
From Vince's perspective, you could not hit a bigger home run. It really was the sum of all parts.
When you think back to WrestleMania 1, I was trying to make a statement as to what our business really is. We wanted to be all forms of entertainment, all rolled into one. When you have all these extraordinary people from all different parts of the entertainment combined, that is sports entertainment. That's what we're about.
If there was ever a perfect storm, this was it. Vince was very excited, very happy. You could tell he was vibrating, man. He was on a high. He knew we pulled it off.
Hulk Hogan and Mr. T in a tag team grudge match? They called it WrestleMania, the biggest event in pro wrestling since Gorgeous George.
Everybody, Madison Square Garden, all the way around the world. Now you know what it's all about, brother.
So right before the first WrestleMania, the whole business was looking good. Vince was the strongest, but there was still all these territories still going on. After WrestleMania 1, nobody knew it yet. These other promoters didn't know it yet, but Vince won the war with that show.
I don't know if it was good for the industry. It was good for me and my organization. That's all I cared about.
After WrestleMania, whatever city we were in, all of a sudden, more TV cameras were everywhere in the buildings, and people wanted to do interviews with us. It was such a major success, it really just put a skyrocket on the company.
This whole momentum changed the wrestling business from cigar smokers and beer drinkers who want to see violence to having families in the front row that want to buy a ton of merchandise. It definitely made wrestling so mainstream, there was no denying that we were here to stay.
WrestleMania 1 is a huge success. It achieved more than Vince could possibly imagine for his company. But with greater success comes greater scrutiny, and Vince becomes a target.
That expression of there's no such thing as bad publicity, that's BS, because there is.
The special investigation has turned up allegations that could outrage the biggest wrestling fan.
A legal fight is in store for the head of the World Wrestling Federation.
It's a scandal that threatens to knock him right out of the ring.
Right on the heels of this huge success, Vince finds himself caught up in a series of scandals that threaten to upend his entire world.
than I am. I do my own thinking. Got a lot of big plans standing back. Never slowing down and I'm never gonna stop. On the way you're gonna see a lot of men drop. Baby, watch your drop. Baby, baby, it's all the times getting back. Every guy brings out the man in the hook. There's the moment, trading house and a honky-tonk man.
Professional wrestling. It's always been popular, but lately it's been emerging from second-rate arenas to attract a whole new generation of fans.
84 and 85 was a very pivotal year in wrestling. Things were changing rapidly. WrestleMania 1 was very, very successful. Vince was ahead of everyone when it came to understanding how to market and, had the more modern product. And he had the bigger stars.
This once sporting pastime has grown so trendy that NBC will soon begin a regular late-night television program combining rock, comedy, and wrestling.
Saturday Night's made up on NBC late night, whenever Saturday Night Live takes a break, and had a big impact on the perception of the business. That was a real big deal to be on network television.
My love, my life, wrestling is on network television. Oh my God. That was crazy.
Oh, yeah! Oh, yeah, scoops him up!
When you look at pivotal moments in our industry, Saturday night's main event was a huge coup.
So WrestleMania is this huge success. And they start doing more TV shows, more live shows. Now they're out there every night, touring the country. But you're doing all of this on the backs of the wrestlers who have to work twice as hard to make the business grow.
We wrestle 7 days a week. I don't know if people do that or not. We had no time off.
It was 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year. And so it was a pretty hard grind.
I just wish they'd give me just a few more days off a year.
They could have been better at managing the schedule, especially in the late 80s when it was just a disaster. The schedule now, I don't think it's that bad. And they're on guaranteed contracts, so they're not under the same pressure to perform while hurt. In the 80s, if you were hurt and didn't wrestle, you were not paid. Because of that, you wrestled hurt all the time, and the injuries got worse and worse and worse. And you used painkillers. It was brutal. But at that time, it was about capturing the most amount of money. And that is how they did it.
Wrestlers as a group were often exploited. These wrestlers were not unionized. They didn't have medical protection.
There was definitely a need for a union in wrestling. That's what Jesse Ventura was trying to do.
Please welcome Jesse the Body Ventura.
Right before WrestleMania 2, Jesse was trying to start a union and undermine Vince.
I'm here to make sure that Vince McMahon tells it like it is.
I was on Vince McMahon's team all the way, so I went straight to Vince and said, hey, Jesse's stirring his shit up, man. He's trying to start a union here, and next thing you know, you're going to have a bunch of wrestlers walk out on you in Madison Square Garden, and just want to let you know what's up.
Hulk Hogan double-crossed Jesse and ratted out all the guys that were trying to get a union going.
Hulk Hogan stoozed him out.
Hogan ratted him out.
The whole thing was a sham. It was something that he pulled out of the air, mostly like, we should get together. And quite frankly, no one in the locker room would ever get behind Jesse.
So what Vince would do, he called each wrestler one by one. He said, I know about the meeting. Everybody that show up for this meeting will not have a job in the morning. So nobody showed up.
It was almost always acknowledged that these guys will never go for it. These guys will never stick together. And the wrestlers would tell me that too. We say boycott WrestleMania altogether, and then half the guys are going to go back and do it and undercut us. Unionizing never happened. And I think it's actually less likely to happen now than it was right before WrestleMania 2.
WrestleMania 2, what the world has come to. Yeah, WrestleMania 1 was such a huge success. So what do you do to top this? Oh, I know. Well, that's from New York. I got one from Chicago. I got one from LA.
3 shows in one day? Okay, it's kind of impressive.
WrestleMania 2 and the 3 cities, that was a disaster. To try to send a signal from 3 different cities, I felt like we weren't in control. You know, Vince could not be in all 3 places.
Beg your pardon? We have technical problems.
I just remember after that, Vince goes, we'll never do that again. You know?
WrestleMania 2 was a success in that it made money and that it wasn't a total catastrophe. But even if it was a commercial success, it wasn't a spectacle on the level of WrestleMania 1.
So WrestleMania 3 then was like, what am I going to do? And it was a very large stadium in Pontiac, Michigan. It seats 93,000 people or something like that. It was almost like, wow, did you really do that? And I thought with the right attraction we could. And that involved Andre the Giant.
Andre the Giant, ladies and gentlemen, is the only undefeated superstar in professional wrestling.
Hogan versus Andre. Even though they had met many times in the past, in order to sell tickets, we would sell it as if they had never met. But I'm convinced Andre to come back to the business.
At the time, Andre's health was failing him. He needed crazy back surgery, as I recall.
Andre did a film in the UK when he broke that and just was going to cash his chips in. Done as much as I can in the business. I'm hurting. I can't move. I'm in pain. So I went over in the middle of that filming. Andre, here's what I want to do. I want you to get the operation that you refused to get. And I want you to come back. And I want you to draw the largest crowd that's ever been drawn. How many seats, boss? 93,000. You know, Andre, I'm serious. You versus Hogan, the way we can present this, you as a heel. Because he'd never been a heel, a bad guy. He was always, you know, a baby face. So he thought about it. And, okay, I'll get the operation.
I'm there for one reason. To challenge you for a world championship match in the WrestleMania. Are you not gonna fight him at WrestleMania 3? Yes or no? Yeah!
It's such a huge promotion.
They're talking about it not only here, but all over the world. Heavyweight champion Hulk Hogan to defend his crown against challenger Andre the Giant.
So great is the war that WrestleMania 3 will draw the largest audience ever to witness an indoor sporting or entertainment event in the history of the world.
We sold 93,000 seats.
We're expecting fans from France, Germany, Africa, South America, the Orient, all over the world.
There are great attractions underneath this huge main event. But it was Hogan and Andre that drew that house.
Sooner or later, you gotta live and die and you gotta face the truth. And for you, Andre the Giant, it's time to face the truth, brother.
Hulk Hogan has never met a man bigger than him, stronger than him, and with a burning will inside more than Andre the Giant.
Andre never told Hogan whether or not he would allow Hogan to win the match. And
Paul kept coming to me. Talk to Andre. Talk to Andre. I said, yeah, I did. What do you say? What do you say? I just said, it's not going to be a problem. You couldn't force him to do anything. Come on. He's a giant.
I sat in the locker room with Andre. I said, hey, boss, any idea what we're doing out there? Don't worry. I got a hold of them. I said, what's going to happen? What am I doing out there? Am I winning or losing? He goes, Andre will do the right thing. Don't worry. What does that mean?
It's a bullet.
When I walked out to the Silver Dome, I just couldn't believe how full it was. I said, boy, this is either going to be the easiest thing I've ever done, or this is going to be a total disaster. There's no in between.
This is the biggest match in the history of professional wrestling. The irresistible force meets the immovable object. Look at the size of the giant.
Yeah, that's giant. And we had somebody with so much charisma, who was almost a superhero. And the two of them were colliding. It was awesome.
During the match, it was the first time I realized how bad his back really was. And I told him in the ring, boss, stay close to the ropes. Because I knew he couldn't get back up on his own. But we go through the match, and out of nowhere, he goes, what? I'm like, what? And when I said what, he came at me. After I slammed, I went to drop the leg, and I covered him. And I didn't know if it was going to go into kick out. I had no idea if I was going to win or lose the match.
Until when?
Until Andre didn't kick out. That moment in time is just something very, very special.
World Wrestling Federation Heavyweight Champion, Hulk
It probably is the greatest attraction we've ever had. That's something I'm very, very proud of today. WrestleMania 3 is a key part of the WWE and Vince McMahon mythology and story of wrestling. You know that Andre the Giant passed the torch to Hogan. The reality is Hogan was already a bigger star than Andre before that match ever happened. Andre had never lost. Andre lost. And Andre had never been slammed. He'd been slammed probably 25 times before that, maybe more.
Oh, look at that!
They said 93,000 for so many years, they probably all believe it by this point. 93,000 people.
93,173 people.
We held the record for 93,000 in a building. Yeah, it was actually 78,000 in the building.
I don't know why this is one of the greatest controversies in pro wrestling history. I think the truth is probably somewhere in the middle, and I'm not sure that it matters at all. I mean, nothing that any wrestler, that anybody involved in wrestling tells you should be regarded as fact. But regardless of the real attendance figure, WrestleMania 3 was an enormous success.
History is made here in the Silverdome Pontiac Arena, and that guy right there has made history all over the world.
The victory for Hogan at that time would build him greater as an entertainer and an athlete and representation of our brand. But of course, the brand comes up that way too.
Three changed the business, and it launched me into superstar status.
He is the most famous and successful professional wrestler the world has ever seen. His name alone can generate millions of dollars of revenue. And when he performs at indoor arenas, he has attracted bigger crowds than the Rolling Stones and even the Post.
When Hulkamania was run wild, he had to be the most popular person in the world. He put Hogan on a card, the front sold out. That was it.
He was a figure of national fame, and you didn't even really have to be someone who regularly watched wrestling. Hulk Hogan had broken through.
At that time, Hulk Hogan anybody ever talked about was Hulk Hogan. So I do remember feeling a little bit of resentment as a kid because my dad never got the credit that he deserved for creating all of this.
Every word that came out of Hogan's mouth was Vince talking.
Better stock them on your shelves. Make sure you've got plenty of them right on your shelf.
Hogan and Vince were like one person. Vince came up with the idea. Hogan did it.
Every single thing was done. When he would tell me stuff, I don't know, man, but I would do it anyway. Because everything he did turned to gold.
With wrestling superstars, it's like having a real match right in your own home.
This huge swell of fans and what have you that we now have in middle-class America. It's like, okay, let's bring this together and let's sell it.
You can start by getting in shape with the Hulkamania workout set.
1-945-4-HULK.
One of the most remarkable success stories has been written by the WWF, whose marketing merchandise grossed over $200 million last year alone. The man behind the magic is the man behind the mic, Vince McMahon Jr.
Vince never stopped. He didn't complain about the hours he worked. He's a workaholic. If Hogan was out doing the shows and doing the money, Vince was out setting up other stuff.
At that time, because of the success that we had, Hogan wanted to be in part of Hollywood. And I'm going, oh, God, I'm going to lose Hogan to Hollywood now. And I said, Terry, okay, you want to do a film? I'll do one with you. Of course, I knew nothing about filmmaking. So Terry and I decided, well, all right, then we'll go write a movie.
It was basically Vince and I spending 2.5 days in a hotel room writing the whole script. We just didn't know what the hell we were doing. We were just having fun.
It's not the world's worst movie, but it wasn't great. It was pretty hokey.
I thought, okay, I'll do this great movie, and everyone in the world's going to want to see it. Exactly the way it worked out. It didn't prevent Hogan from then going to Hollywood, but it delayed it for a while.
When did you notice Hulkamania was starting to fade? You know, I go back and I look at WrestleMania 6.
At that time, for Hogan, the star may have been fading a little bit. Do you want to live forever? You can't just stay on top every day, every year. It was probably time for Hogan to be on the bench for a while.
Hulk's getting older, and you need something new. And Warrior had a groundswell of popularity.
The Ultimate Warrior was a little better than me, and his colors were brighter than me. The only one problem he had was he really wasn't in love with his business. There was a situation behind that shiny object. There wasn't much go. But I did what Andre did for me. I passed the torch to him.
Warrior became the champion and was very popular with the audience. Popular as Hulk? No. As time went on, Warrior wasn't all maybe as hoped he would be, and he was not a popular person backstage. So immediately you look at, well, oh my God, we need to move back to Hulk.
We had this storyline in which Sergeant Explorer was a big, huge fan favorite. He was a Marine Corps drill sergeant, great American. So he, as a baby face, a good guy, and all that sort of business, was turning into a bad guy. And well, like any good organization, you're always like, okay, what can I take from pop culture? What's happening out in the world? You know, how can we present it in a different fashion? So there was a lot of heat, as we call it, with Iraq and USA. Troops and civilians are on edge in the Middle East. So, okay, good. Then we can capitalize on that.
My guest this week, ladies and gentlemen, is the former United States military man, Sergeant Slaughter.
Sergeant Slaughter then sort of was drafted into the Iraqi culture, so to speak. And now he wanted to represent Iraq.
I'm okay. That's right. I'm not brave. Iraqi country has raised high in the air.
So we had this big storyline going with Hogan versus Sergeant Slaughter, USA versus Iraq. And it was working. It was working really well. And then all of a sudden, from a reality standpoint, dun, 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 Iraq invades Kuwait. We have Desert Storm.
As I report to you, air attacks are underway against military targets in Iraq.
Having sergeants and Iraqi sympathizers, it was way too fresh and way too new and in the now. It was like, well, wait a minute. I've got, a relative over there, or a niece or something like that, serving our country. The audience really didn't want to see it.
We got to the point where Sergeant Slaughter was getting death threats at home, and they want to kill his wife and kill his kids. So as far as telling a wrestling story, it worked awesome. I just thought that, boy, this is a risky move here.
Americans could die in this thing, so change it up, back off in the storyline just a little bit. But, still had the match.
Once again, the largest pay-per-view audience in the history of pay-per-view. It's been our great care.
At the end of the day, the Great American won.
The wrestling of the early to mid 80s, I liked it a lot. I was very amused by it. But it took a nastier turn somewhere down the line. And at some point, it ceased to be something that I was comfortable being involved in.
Well, you learn from everything, and since you have no control over world events, you have to be very careful associating yourself with events in the real world. Anything can happen, so don't go there.
So we moved back to Holt, and there wasn't, thank God, Holt's back. The audience was tired of Holt. At least Hulk in that role of being the All-American, being the hero. They were sick of it. And on top of that, there started being the whispers of the Dr. Zahorian trial and the whispers of all this other stuff.
In Harrisburg, Pennsylvania next Monday, a doctor will go on trial charged with prescribing anabolic steroids to several professional wrestlers.
Dr. George Zahorian has been indicted by a federal grand jury on 15 counts of distributing muscle-building steroids.
Am I right, Dr. George Zahorian? Thank you very much for joining us here this week.
Dr. George Zahorian was appointed by the Pennsylvania State Athletic Commission as the doctor of note for WWE. We had nothing to do with who was appointed. His role was to make sure that all the laws of the State Athletic Commission were followed. It would be in our locker rooms and things of that nature. And he began to sell steroids to our talent.
At that time, steroids were part of the culture because all the stars during that time period had the perfect bodies. And so it was the norm. Like people go to Starbucks in the morning before they go to work. People take steroids because they're wrestlers or actors or baseball players or hockey players or football players.
It was an era where steroid use in sports ran amok. If you just looked at the wrestlers themselves, they went from, a burly guy who could plausibly be introduced as having come off his grandpa's farm in Iowa, built his muscles from hoisting bales of hay, to these guys who were like cyborgs. The WWE reek of steroids. It's obvious.
Now you tell me he ain't rich.
Dr. George Zahorian would come and he would have steroids and painkillers and sleeping pills and different things that he would then prescribe and sell to the talent.
he would check you for your match, blood pressure, your pulse rate, and all that. It's like, I need a few other things, and then you negotiate for your steroids and your pills.
It wasn't illegal to buy steroids from a physician. I bought some from him. But it was illegal to prescribe them just to sell them.
Steroids, early on, they were legal. However, when they became illegal, that's when it became an issue.
Following Reagan's era of war on drugs, just say no. The laws started changing, and at some point, steroids were categorized as, I believe, a class 3 substance.
The feeling was that doctors were prescribing them not for the purpose that they were intended for.
So George Sahorian was arrested by the federal government. The government came down hard and sent him to jail.
It's hard to believe what's occurred today.
All of the media hoopla behind steroids definitely came in really bad time for Vince. And we had just started the WBF, the World Bodybuilding Federation.
Here comes the World Bodybuilding Federation. I've always enjoyed bodybuilding and physiques. So I thought maybe, okay, I could get these bodybuilders to perform various routines and add a lot of entertainment value to it. Turned out not a good time to do that. Because bodybuilders, all they do is take steroids. So the writing's on the wall. This is not going to work. Decided, well, let's fold this. At that time, there was a lot of heat, and I felt like, boy, I'm getting hit from all sides.
Most of us think of professional wrestling as harmless entertainment, and Hulk Hogan as the king of the ring. But was there a sinister side to his success?
Dr. Zahorian testified he had treated Hulk Hogan for a serious steroid abuse problem.
After the Zahorian trial, Vince ended up being pressured by the media to start steroid testing.
When you see this symbol, you can be assured of drug-free sports entertainment that you and your entire family can be proud of.
I held the press conference and said, hey, look, I took steroids. I'm not anymore. And we're going to establish protocols, procedures to make certain that none of our performers do either.
The World Wrestling Federation will be the standard bearer for drug-free sports and entertainment.
The same day, Hulk Hogan went on the Arsenio Hall show.
Your name came up recently when a doctor got himself into trouble. Have you heard about this?
Oh, yeah, I've heard about it. I remember talking with Vince about going on Arsenio Hall, and he thought it was a really bad idea.
My suggestion to him is to come clean. That's not what happened.
I'm not a steroid abuser. I do not use steroids.
It's like, oh, God, please. Just telling the truth is so much easier.
Hulk Hogan went on the Arsenio Hall show and he told everybody that he only took steroids 3 times.
He lied like a dog. And I myself injected him personally.
I injected Hogan with steroids many times.
I self-destructed my own self. That was one of the worst decisions I ever made, was not listening to Vince.
When you do stuff like that and don't tell the truth, then it's an open door for people to come get you. And unfortunately, we were caught in crosshairs of that as well.
I was never assigned to cover wrestling, but pro wrestling was so highly rated on TV, it was hard to ignore. And I slowly began to feed it into my column. There was a newspaper columnist, Phil Mushnick, with New York Post. I try to be nice here, but there's nothing nice to say about him. He seemed to be on a vendetta against the company, and Vince in particular.
Phil Mushnick was taking anything he could possibly take for. I don't know why his vendetta still does against our company, against our form of entertainment, against me. I don't know why. Because he's a dirtbag. What Vince had by running wrestling is it's wrestling. So the real reporters, for the most part, that's wrestling. We don't want to get to covering it. And Phil Mushnick was the one guy to cover it, and he wrote very, very strongly against Vince. Stronger than I would write. Back then, no one had seen anything written critical of pro wrestling in mainstream media. And when I first wrote this stuff, my mailbox was stuffed with messages. And
and they essentially all read the same. You don't know the half of it. You don't know how truly bad it is within the ring and within the locker rooms. And I returned some calls, and it was mind-blowing.
You know, as wrestling becomes more popular, naturally people are interested in the stories of what's going on behind the scenes. And pulling back the curtain in the pro wrestling world can be pretty shocking. You know, the stories of depravity, of sex, of violence, of drug use.
We would have been looked upon in today's society as some of the worst human beings walking the face of the earth. I mean, we abused the hell out of women. All of us did. You know, they were like a tool for us.
You don't have to do a lot of research to understand that being a woman in or around the pro wrestling world at this point in history was not necessarily a safe place to be.
I hear some horrible stuff about women in wrestling. Horrible.
With us now, ladies and gentlemen, Superfly, Jimmy Snuka.
For example, the Jimmy Snuka thing, where that girl got killed.
In 1983, Jimmy Snuka was the most popular wrestler in the company at the time. Something happened in a hotel room in Allentown, Pennsylvania. His girlfriend hit her head and died. The forensic pathologist who investigated thought it was a homicide, but at the time, no charges were ever filed.
Superfly, Jimmy Snuka.
And was the power of Vince involved in that? I think that Vince had a hand in making it go away. I mean, exactly what? I don't know.
Hell, butter. It's gonna be hot. Hot butter. No doubt.
At this point, most fans didn't know about these sort of darker stories about pro wrestling. And Phil Mushnick was one of the first people to really bring this out into the public space.
Phil Mushnick was vigilant against Vince. He had told me once, and he said, I've got a story, and the day I write it, they may have to close the doors the next day.
A battle royale and professional wrestling over new allegations of sexual harassment by top officials in the sport. This growing scandal could put wrestling down for the count.
There was so much going on at the time, and one accusation is that someone from our organization was coming on to someone on the ring crew.
The Ring Boy scandal began with a fellow named Mel Phillips, who was what they called a ring boss. He would bring with him ring boys. In too many cases, these ring boys were underage, and they were being sexually abused.
Former ring boy Tom Cole says the top WWF executive sexually harassed and abused ring boys. The teenagers hired to put up and take down rings at matches.
Now, Phillips was a total pedophile that preyed on young boys, and these young boys were complying with their requests for sexual favors. They weren't hired.
And then I learned there were others involved. Terry Garvin, an executive in Connecticut, and Pat Patterson, one of McMahon's top executives.
Here at ringside, Vince McMahon along with wrestling great Pat Patterson.
In a business that was very homophobic, Pat was gay and openly gay, but Pat prospered and became a top guy everywhere he went.
I was grabbed on numerous occasions on my testicles and my buttocks by Pat Patterson of the World Wrestling Federation, and Terry Garvin propositioned me when I was 16, offered me cocaine and all kinds of drugs to have sex with him. When I refused, I was let go from the company when I was 16.
I think Vince is guilty of aiding and abetting the Ring Boy scandal. At best, he's guilty of rank neglect.
Phil Mushnick was trying to build this whole case of, how rotten the company was. He didn't care how he did it. He didn't care about whether or not he hurt the people that were involved, on one side or the other. He just wanted to write this salacious piece about WWE.
The pedophile ring. 3 of these guys were all in on it. These were real kids being sexually abused on McMahon's watch.
I do think there was a lot of turning a blind eye to some of the things that were going on, but I don't think anybody could ever prove anything. It was kind of like, how do you prove it?
Eventually, Vince settled with Tom Cole. Mel Phillips and Terry Garvin. They were let go and never worked there again. Pat Patterson resigned, but during that period, Vince and I talked. He goes, one of the three was innocent. I go, well, who? And he goes, Pat Patterson. And I go, so why is he gone? If he's innocent. He goes, you don't understand running this business. It's a gay witch hunt, and he had to go. Most people in wrestling that were around believed that Patterson never acted unprofessionally, and months later, Patterson was back.
Wait. In regards to the allegations made against Pat, nothing's ever been substantiated, and I just don't believe it.
Please, not me. Don't know movie something.
None of it rings true. The others, no comment.
We all knew Pat was doing this stuff. I didn't like Pat because he kept wearing my pepper in the locker room.
What?
He was wearing my pepper.
Yeah. Did you guys complain?
To who? He's a bunker. He's a number 2 guy in the office. To who? You know nothing about the wrestling business, nothing. There's nobody to go to, son. You either take it or you go home. Who you gonna complain to? Me? For what? To get fired? He needed Pat more than he needed me.
Pat was like the savant of professional wrestling. He was Vince's right-hand man when it came to booking, and was very, very valuable in the company.
Did Vince protect Pat? I wouldn't say he protected him. I would say he protected the business.
The allegations are absolutely absurd to have been raised.
McMahon insists it's all just a conspiracy to wreck his business.
It just seems as though they're all ganging up on us all at one time.
There's no sign the charges have done any harm. No, wrestling or whatever this is has survived scandals before, and there is no reason to believe this one too won't be drowned out by all those fans who couldn't care less.
What reaction there was meager from legitimate media. Those who seemed to eat it up were the scandal shows, like Phil Donahue's Kindness Show.
Here you are being accused, Mr. McMahon, of presiding over an organization that looked the other way while these sex harassment activity was taking place.
I want to see people who enjoys confrontation. If there is a situation like Donahue, I have no problem at all confronting someone, especially when they're lying.
You did a horrible job. That's the only reason why you were fired.
Donahue was an opportunity to stand up for himself. I don't think it went the way he wanted it to.
Sexual harassment is running rampant in the world. Where are you all these years? It's fun to blackball me all over the country. I even sleep with your vice president. 2 weeks later, I'm fired. I don't know that happens.
Well, there's a good decision or a bad decision at that time, at this time. I did it.
I was sitting right next to Vince. He was not comfortable. At one point, he whispers to me, this is the longest hour of my life.
It's not the truth, okay? If you lie about this to children, you're finished, kaput. I don't buy it.
I think that this was one point in his life that everything was kind of coming down at once. There was a bit of frustration in what he couldn't control.
Oh my gosh, there were so many scandals going on with who was dating who was sleeping with who. Do you remember any of those? Well, you know what? Let me try to do. I'm trying to be really cautious on doing this. I don't know what they want out in the open or not.
I know there was some girl that was a referee that I think Vince said sexually assaulted her. I remember reading the referee because there was only one female referee in wrestling at that point in time, and it was her. And Vince was definitely trying to push her as the hot blonde woman ref as a character in his soap opera.
Rita Marie, ladies and gentlemen, the very first ever lady referee in the World Wrestling Federation. Hopefully we'll be seeing more of her in time to come.
When you're accused of this and accused that, and it's like this deluge of things, you're this, you're that. One of the things was an alleged rape that never happened.
I was forced into oral sex with Vince McMahon when I couldn't complete his desire
my James, told me on top of him and told me again, if I wanted to have $1 million contract, I had to satisfy him. And if I didn't satisfy him, I was blackballed. I was scared. My wrist was all black and blue. He just didn't stop.
Once you're accused of rape, you're a rapist. But it was consensual, and actually, had it been a rape, the statute of limitations had run out. So, I mean, it's all kind of crap like that people are digging up and trying to find something on you.
Vince did sue her over it, and he sued Geraldo Rivera, but the general public, I think they just thought that it was all sleazy. People looked the other way.
God, I just hope somebody listens.
They just thought it was like a woman making up a story on a rich guy.
Rita, what do you expect to get now? I mean, what do you want? Did you just want to come on Geraldo, or?
They were very, very negative on her.
It just didn't resonate with a public that it should have resonated with. It was the biggest guy on cable TV. Nobody wanted to look a little deeper. They really didn't want to look. They didn't want to know.
Most newspapers ran away from it or wouldn't touch it because it's wrestling, it's beneath us. But Bill was not dissuaded by Vince at all. He kept going and going. And I do think that the negative headlines and attention, that did lead to the indictment, it did lead to the trial.
The Justice Department has indicted the most powerful man in professional wrestling in this country, not a wrestler, the man who runs the World Wrestling Federation. The charge, illegal distribution of steroids.
You know what triggered the federal government to start looking into you?
Well, I think Phil Mushnick triggered all of this. And whether or not he had any connections to the federal government, I don't know. But again, that's where it seemed to begin.
I was an FBI informant, I admit to that. You know why? The FBI would read what I wrote and then act on it.
When the indictments came, there were no indictments or anything on the Ringboard story or recharge. There were steroid indictments.
The 3-count indictment charges that he conspired to defraud the government by possessing and distributing steroids through Dr. George Zaharian.
Good morning, guys.
It was not a good morning for World Wrestling Federation owner Vincent McMahon. On this day, he was in federal court entering a plea of not guilty to charges that he bulked up his wrestlers with steroids.
Prosecutors say McMahon, who admits being a former steroid user himself, is a corporate drug pusher. McMahon's lawyers, on the other hand, say the wrestling mogul is the victim of a government witch hunt.
Sometimes life isn't fair, and unfortunately, for me, I believe this is one of those instances. The federal government, the Justice Department, can be the biggest bullies. They have unlimited resources. The average person can't afford to buck the government. They just can't. So that's why so many people probably, they've wanted me, probably.
He would have to plead guilty to some charge, but he would pay a fine, and everything goes away.
I wouldn't do it. I wasn't guilty of anything. I said, fuck yourself.
Convicted, McMahon could face up to 11 years in jail and $500,000 in fines on each count.
So right before the trial, Vince had neck surgery, so he goes into the trial and he's wearing a neck brace. My impression was that it was not an operation that he needed to do at that moment.
A lot of people thought he's wearing this teeth because he's trying to evoke some sort of sympathy, from the jury. I mean, that was not the case.
It's impossible to not think there was some sort of storytelling contrivance behind it. I mean, in pro wrestling, bad guys would wear those neck braces because they knew the crowd would boo them for, being overly dramatic.
Not a facade. I'm not well.
With Vince, everything is a show, even in the midst of this very serious trial. I mean, there's a lot at stake here.
It was a tense time. If he was proven guilty, that would have been a problem for us, and they would be off the air.
During that time, there was a lot of turbulence, and instead of people cheering me nonstop, I needed a couple boos here, instead of we love Hulk Hogan or Hulk May live forever, I see a sign up that said, hey, did you take your shot today? And so I didn't feel like I was in control of crowds anymore. And that's when I told Vince I needed to go. It was not an easy conversation.
Whether or not this is your last match, I'd like to say that on behalf of all of us, your Hulkamaniacs, thank you for the memories, and thank you for Hulkamania. Thank you.
I don't think people fully appreciate how dire things were looking. All the scandals were all piled off at the same time. And it was a great opportunity for our competition to make a move.
At that time, Ted Turner, who owned the WCW, he was my biggest competitor.
I've been involved with the wrestling business since we started televising it back in, I think, 73.
Ted Turner is one of the pioneers in cable television. Obviously founded TV networks like CNN, TBS, TNT, and he was one of the first people to broadcast professional wrestling nationwide.
We were the #2 wrestling promotion in the world.
Good morning, America, and a welcome to WCW.
We might as well have been number 202. That's the distance between WWE and WCW. The type of programming, the content that WCW was producing prior to me being hired as executive producer was just a really bad imitation of what WWE was successful in. There was no vision, there was no strategy, there was just throwing things up against the wall and hoping something would work as long as it looked something like what WWE was doing. I had been following the steroid trials and all the controversy and everything that went on as a result of that. I was very well aware that Hulk had left WWE and was going to pursue television and movies. And coincidentally, I was down at Disney MGM Studios shooting my show for WCW, while Hulk Hogan was at Disney MGM Studios shooting a show called Thunder in Paradise.
Here comes Eric Bischoff wandering over to the set, and he said, "We really would love to have you, consider coming back to wrestling. We know you're filming the TV series, even if part-time." I said, "Let's talk. Let's talk." I was not happy with the acting and being locked up in a trailer most of the day. It just wasn't me.
Hulk was torn because he loved wrestling. He missed it. But he also had 2 very, very young kids at home. And it was really important to him to not be on the road 300 days a year. And WCW provided Hulk an opportunity to do both. The nature of our contract was you may have a total of 30 appearances a year as opposed to 300. Ted Turner was given these guarantees. We're going to give you $1 million a year. How many days do you work? Well, how many days do you want to work? I want to work 100 days. Okay, you got it. Where WWE, I know when we were there, it was 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year. I just looked at it as, wow, I have this amazing opportunity. I'm going to put my salesman hat on. I'm going to get this guy to join WCW.
When I left, I had the meeting with Vince, and it was a real emotional meeting. I actually told Vince I will never run against you, because that was a concern.
You said, I'm going to go off to movies and do things like that, but I do want my release. But you're not going to compete. No, absolutely not. So it was one of those things where I didn't release, and next thing you know, he's with the other guys.
WCW is about to dominate the globe in professional wrestling. That's why we're here today. To sign a contract for a match between 2 of wrestling's biggest superstars, Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair.
We had a very close personal relationship. Took him, of course, made a huge star out of him. And then from there, he decides he wants to flip to our competition. No longer be associated with you. So, sure, emotionally, it hurts. It broke my heart. Yeah.
Hulk Hogan's defection to WCW, right there in the middle of the trial, that was more than a slap in the face. Even to this day, that was taboo in my book.
Vince viewed Hulk as a lifer, but Hulk was offered a better deal with Ted Turner, offered guaranteed money with Ted Turner.
Money talks, and the expression goes, I guess.
Hulk's looking at it also like, man, I don't know if Vince is going to be there after the trial.
don't know if there's even going to be a company there to work for.
It's another day in court for World Wrestling Federation founder Vince McMahon. Vince McMahon was charged with conspiring to beef up his brawny wrestlers with anabolic steroids.
This case should go on for several days, and interest is expected to peak when a pro wrestler by the name of Malia testifies. Of course, he goes by the name of Hulk Hogan.
Wrestling insiders say that Hogan will be the government's star witness and testify against McMahon at his trial in May.
After I left the WWF, the government wanted me to be their star witness. I was told that if I didn't say what they wanted to hear, the target of the investigation would be directed to me, and I might do 17 years.
Hogan didn't want to testify against Vince. They forced him to. They basically had something on Hogan, and they wanted Vince, and so Hogan had to. The conviction rate in cases like that was very, very high. So at that point, it was like, God, the odds are looking against Vince.
I think a lot of the stuff in there is evidence of what I believed all along is kind of proven to be true.
Now, I was over 2 weeks, and I could tell that Vince was just scared to death. Vince was in serious, serious problems at that point.
I truly believe in the law of the jungle. If something's weakened, then you want the power on it, you want to kill it. So, at that time, it was coming from everywhere. Now, how could it possibly stand up to that and hold up? Law of the jungle. I get it.
I was granted immunity, and I said, well, cool, I got it. I'm on one side.
Doesn't make sense. Why are you telling us that now? Wait. No. This is like how it's better than like that doesn't make sense. Alright, so I'm thinking that they just have it open. Is she still going on this bullshit?
Wrestling Federation, ladies champion, Wendy Richter.
Wendy Richter was the champion, and everything was fine for a while. But Wendy had become a problem, as I recall.
Every woman in professional wrestling wants my belt, but I want it too, and I had to...
When it was time to do the honors, so to speak, and pass that championship to someone else, she resisted. And it's like, this is show business. I'm writing a script. You're holding my championship. It's mine, it's not yours. I'm not going to give it up. All right. I'm going to make you give it up then.
This contest is for the ladies championship.
The audience is expecting a match. You don't want to fight. won, they were expecting a match. You know, you're screwing the public then. So get the match in the ring, as my dad used to say, and then you figure it out.
Bell's gone, and we're underway in this title matchup.
The match is in the ring, and Wendy has the championship, and it's really easy. Somewhere in this match, when the champion pulled up, told the ref simply, just count to 3.
Oh, stop package. Nicely executed. Oh, was that close? What was that?
The referee counted 1. I lifted my shoulder up, and he counted 2, 3, even with my shoulders off the mat. That was a very painful night. My dreams were completely shattered. I was humiliated, and it was on television.
I didn't care. It was like, it was public being an uproar. And oh my God, you know, it really wasn't a fair count. I answered that. Life's not fair sometimes. And, you know, I don't fight fair.
There's a saying in wrestling, it's nothing personal, just business. And I think that's what Vince McMahon is. He's a businessman.
When he came back after the match, she looked at me, bowed her head, and walked out. That was the last I ever saw of Wendy. But for me, there's nothing personal. This is business. And there's nothing I wouldn't do for our business.
Only you want to give up the title? Like, come on. That's ridiculous.
Vince McMahon came in wearing a neck brace and smiling in his second week on trial for steroid-selling conspiracy. Today, McMahon was upstaged by his former #1 star, Hulk Hogan.
The man behind the character would shed his spandex and jump into the ring at U.S. District Court to testify with immunity against Vince McMahon, his former boss. This was to be the main event in the prosecution's conspiracy case against McMahon.
It was time for me to go testify. I walked straight across the courtroom, and as I walked by, there was Vince McMahon sitting there. You know, we were at each other's throats at the time. The feds just thought that this is the perfect opportunity for me to throw dirt on Vince, and all of a sudden run wild with the wrestling world. When testified, and I think they were shocked.
On cross-examination of power slam by the defense, Mr. McMahon never ordered or directed you to take steroids. Never. It was your personal choice. Definitely. Did he imply that wrestlers should use steroids? Never, Hogan answered.
You know, one of the last times I talked to Vince, and it had been months and months and months since we talked, one of the last things I said to him, brother, I said, we go all the way up together, we go all the way down together. Don't forget that.
As far as, you know, Hulk Hogan understand, I can tell you that the government was very surprised. I can see the faces on the prosecutors. This is not what we were expecting. Because Hogan totally backed Vince. Did the government know what you were going to say?
No, I wouldn't tell him. I just said, I'll say whatever you guys need me to say. Just told them what they wanted to hear at the time, but I knew what I was going to say. I was going to tell the truth. He didn't sell steroids. He didn't tell people to take them. All the stuff they said about him was not true.
He was crafty in terms of giving the government what they wanted to a certain extent, but not what they really wanted.
They really wanted someone to say, Vince McMahon told me to take steroids.
They even called me. They wanted me to test out against Vince. Yeah, but the Vince appeared to do steroids. I said, no, I was using steroids before I met Vince. He let us do it, let's put it that way. But he didn't sell it to us.
There was a strong influence to take of his based on common sense and realizing all the guys that are on steroids are the main event guys. But Vince tell me or any other wrestler to take steroids? I never saw it. Vince isn't going to someone and go, hey, you go on steroids. But would he say, hey, you need to work out harder? Thinking about going on steroids? Who knows?
I wasn't guilty of anything. Didn't change the fact that these bastards are coming after me for no good reason. So naturally I'm concerned. This is my liberty. And when you're about to hear the verdict, it's like, holy shit. That's a moment you'll never forget. That's a moment my life is about to change.
World Wrestling Federation head Vince McMahon allowed himself just the slightest expression of relief as the verdict was read.
The verdict, not guilty. Cheers from fans roared through the courtroom. An emotional hug from his wife of 27 years, Linda.
I was there. The verdict happened, and it was relief.
That case never should have gone to trial because they did not have the evidence to convict him. And I think they did it because they thought Vince was a bad guy. If you're a newspaper reporter, you can go after him for that. If you're going to put him on trial, you have to have more than that.
If there were any doubters as to what the World Wrestling Federation was and is all about, I think this just cleared up all of them.
I remember Linda going, the case proved we didn't have a steroid problem. It's like, no, the case proved by all testimony that most of your guys were on steroids and your biggest stars were on steroids. That's what the case proved. They're going to try to portray him as the good guy, but it's like Vince was the bad guy. He wasn't convicted, nor should he have been, but he wasn't the good guy.
I don't know that I learned really anything. You know, the alternate business is some people that found government suck.
Vince always paints himself as the victim in this trial. And I don't think it was a surprise that he was found innocent. I don't mean to imply that he should have ended up guilty, but there are rumors and reports about everything Vince's team did to try to win. Stories of contacting witnesses, payoffs, jury tampering, all of which paints Vince in a way that's very different than the way that he would like to portray himself. So after the trial, after this whole series of scandals, Vince probably felt invincible, but that wasn't the case.
Regardless of what the outcome was, the trial affected business in a huge way. Things got tight, and things got scary.
Some executives left. I don't blame them. You know, would I wish they didn't leave and what have you? Sure I do. Because it hurt the company, the fact that they left.
During that period, I mean, their business struggled. They had years they lost money. Their revenues were way down. They were in pretty big financial straits.
The company took a huge drop in attendance. There was no more sellouts. Business wasn't the same as it was when Hulk Hogan was on top.
What Vince was looking for was someone that would replace Hulk as the face of WWE, and Vince thought it could be Lex.
We did put the machine, so to speak, behind Lex Luger and thought he was going to be awesome.
Let's take a look now at some footage of the Lex Express.
Lex was okay, but nowhere near Hulk Hogan.
I know it. You know it. Everyone out there knows it.
Lex just wasn't capable of connecting with the audience. Lex was just another in a long chain of guys trying to fill Hulk's shoes.
They had to replace Hulk Hogan. You know, the guy who pulled the sword out of the stone was Bret Hart.
Go get him, champ.
New generation was sort of a new era. We have new stars. We have Bret Hart.
You know, in the WWF, there is a lot of changes.
We have the reason following. There's only one man who is oozing machismo.
We have Kevin Nash.
Unleash the new generation.
And we have Shawn Michaels.
I'm the heartbreak kid, Shawn Michaels, Jack. I'm the man that made history.
Once you knew that it was no longer sort of the Hogan era, it kind of just put a question mark on everything. Everything is kind of up for grabs for most of us in the locker room. We got a little bit more hopeful that this was kind of anybody's ball game.
Hulk's gone, now who's going to step up? That was the mindset. And there were three guys that were waiting to fill that void.
The guys that we had, the new generation guys like Stone and Undertaker, two best wrestlers maybe ever. I was kind of proud to be the torchbearer for the new generation. There was just so many liabilities on the company at that time, and I was the safest guy. Bret Hart's not going to get busted with an underage girl in a hotel, or we found a kilo of cocaine in his bag.
It seems to me that you bring a certain humility.
That's why I've been saying we're going to be the champion for a long time. And you can hold the fort while we deal with all these issues right now.
Bret comes from the Hart family, which has produced and made many performers in the past. Very interesting family. Bret didn't have all that much charisma. He had some, but enough. So he was kind of nip and tuck there for a while. At the same time, during the course of that Ted Turner starts grabbing some of the talent, whatever. So I had to deal with that as well.
Ted opened up the checkbook and said to the people working there, you can do whatever you want, just make this happen.
WCW is different than WWF because there was so much more money there. I mean, I cut these crazy deals when I first walked in, and it was like dying and going to heaven again as far as the wrestling business.
The amount of money it was offering them was far greater than the amount they have ever made here. So it was logical for a lot of them to leave and go join Ted's organization. And what's he gonna do?
You know, shortly after Hulk Hogan, Randy Savage
all of a sudden became available.
Unfortunately, Randy Savage has been unable to sign a contract with the World Wrestling Federation. That was the next bit.